بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم لا حول ولا قوة إلا بالله العلي العظيم الحمد لله رب العالمين وصلى الله على سيدنا ونبينا أبي القاسم المصطفى محمد
اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد
وآله الطيبين الطاهرين لا سيما بقية الله في الأرضين أجل الله تعالى فرجه الشريف. We continue our discussions on divine justice based on the book Divine Justice by Ayatollah Mutahhari, and now we are discussing the ninth section of the book, which is about the good actions of non-Muslims. Are they going to be accepted and rewarded by God or not? So this is a very important discussion. This can be discussed in two levels. One is about good actions of non-Muslims. If you say they are accepted, then a question arises, then what is the need for Islam? If you say they are not accepted, there's a question, then what is the justice of God? Okay? The same question can be brought to another level, instead of Muslim, non-Muslim, about Shia and non-Shia among Muslim Ummah. If a non-Shia Muslim does something, is it accepted or not? If it is accepted, then they may say, if it is accepted, then what about the need for wilaya, for imama? If you say it's not accepted, then again it's a matter of justice. Ayatollah Mutahhari says, in the past, if you go 50 years, for example, ago, when he wrote this book, which is 40, 50 years ago, so if you go 100 years ago, this question was not very public. This was a question that Muslim philosophers had addressed in philosophical books. For example, he says in the philosophical books, you had this idea that because in the world, the main principle is good, not bad, khair, not shar. And also because we know in philosophy that al-qasru la yakunu abadiyan aw da'imiyan. This is one of the discussion in the discussion about haraka, movement in philosophy. You know, we have two types of haraka. One is natural, one is qasri. Qaf and sin means against the nature. For example, when something comes like an apple drops, coming towards the ground is natural. But going towards the sky is not natural. It's a qasri. Qasr needs intervention. If you want to send something up, it's in need of intervention. But coming down, it comes automatically. So if you have an apple and leave it, just leave it in the sky, it comes down. Okay? So, if it's going up against gravity, it's qasri. This type of haraka cannot be continuing forever, or for most of the time. Qasr quickly finishes, or takes a little time, finishes. Okay? This world is based on goodness, and problems are not permanent or even for most of the parts. So if we say majority of people go to hell, especially knowing that human beings are the main creatures, or at least one of the main creatures of God. فَضَّلْنَاهُمْ عَلَى كَثِيرٍ مِّمَّنْ خَلَقْنَا تَفْضِيلًا. This is not going to make sense. So philosophers had the idea that we should find a way to explain how goodness can be the main principle, how most of people can have felicity and happiness, how mercy of Allah precedes his anger. Otherwise, these principles would not work. Anyway, Ayatollah Mutahari says these were discussions among philosophers, but nowadays they have become public discussions. And he says there was a meeting of some societies, like, for example, doctors or university lecturers. He says once they asked people to write any question that they wanted to be discussed in those meetings. And then they gave him a notebook of all these questions. And he said one question that many, many people had asked was about this issue. That are good actions of non-Muslims accepted or not? Are they going to heaven or not? This type of things. So he says, therefore, this has become a very important question for everyone today, and we have to address it. Is Islam a condition for accepting good deeds, or is Shia Islam a condition for accepting good deeds of Muslims? He says, before we enter this discussion, we need to clarify 2 points. First, we are not concerned with individuals. We don't want to say this particular person goes to hell or heaven. No one can judge except Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So if people ask us about any person, even for example, he says, Sheikh Ansari rahmatullah. If someone says, can you confirm that he's going to heaven? He says, we cannot say we confirm. We can say that to the best of our knowledge, he's very pious, very high person in taqwa. But I cannot say, Wallah, he's going to heaven. Okay? It's not possible for us to judge. Or says, someone goes to hell because he is sinning. We don't know. There are many things that are hidden to us. Yes, if there are people that in the Quran or in authentic hadith, it is explained to us that what is their destiny, that's another issue. For example, Quran says about Fir'aun, يَقْدُمُ قَوْمَهُ يَوْمَ الْقِيَامَةِ فَأَوْرَدَهُمُ النَّارِ. Yeah? يَقْدُمُ قَوْمَهُ يَوْمَ الْقِيَامَةِ فَأَوْرَدَهُمُ النَّارِ. Okay, based on this ayah, we can say this is the situation of Fir'aun. Or if there is authentic hadith. Otherwise, by our own thinking and calculations, we cannot say this person is going to hell or to heaven. Okay? This is a very important point.
Sorry, just one this Quranic verse, Surah An-Nahl, verse 97. Man amila salihan man dhakara wa huwa mu'min.
Yeah, we come to that. Still, we are making 2 introductory points. He says, similar to this is about who is better than the other. Sometimes people say, which alim is nearer to God? For example, Muqaddasa Ardabili or Sayyid ibn Ta'wuz. He says, we cannot judge. Or some people say, which children of Imam was higher, Hazrat Abul Fazl or Hazrat Ali Akbar? He says a few years ago, of course, when he wrote the book, he says a few years ago, someone sent an inquiry to one of Maraja, trying to understand whether Hazrat Abu al-Fazl is higher or Hazrat Ali Akbar. And to make it a fiqhi question, he said, if someone has made nazr, has made a vow to, for example, slaughter a sheep and give it to the shrine of the highest Imamzadeh, should he give it to the shrine of Hazrat Abu al-Faz or shrine of Hazrat Ali Akbar? Okay? So he wanted to make it necessary for that faqih to answer. Okay? So, he says we cannot judge these things. We cannot say who is higher or who, is nearer to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So, nothing can be fixed by us about individuals. Of course, if it is in the Quran or authentic hadith, that's another issue. He mentions also a famous story of Uthman ibn Mad'un. When Uthman ibn Mad'un died, Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam was very sad. He cried. It is said that Rasulullah cried. Even Rasulullah put himself on the body of Uthman ibn Mad'un and kissed Uthman ibn Mad'un. So a lady that with her husband hosted Uthman ibn Mad'un in their home in Medina said, Hani'an lakal jannah. Hani'an lakal jannah. She congratulated Uthman ibn Mad'un for going to heaven. Rasulullah was not happy and said, how do you know that he is going to heaven? She said, because he is a companion of you and he was a mujahid. And also, he saw how Rasulullah is sad, he's crying, Rasulullah is in his funeral. Then Rasulullah said, Inni Rasulullah wa ma adri ma yuf'alu bi. He quotes this from Ustul Ghaba, which is a book about the companions of the Prophet. So in the entry about Uthman ibn Mad'un, this is mentioned. Rasulullah said, I am the messenger of God and I don't know what's going to be done with me. Which is actually from the Quran, this idea. Because in Surah Ahqaf, verse 9, Allah says, قُلْ مَا كُنْتُ بِدْعًا مِنَ الرُّسُلِ وَمَا أَدْرِي مَا يُفْعَلُ بِي وَلَا بِكُمْ. Tell them, I am not the first messenger. It's not that God had not sent any messengers, I'm the first messenger. So this is not something new. You shouldn't be surprised. And tell them, I don't know what's going to be done to me or to you. To you and to me. So, Rasulullah said to this lady that you should not be saying, Salaam alaikum, or thinking, definitely Uthman ibn Mad'un is going to heaven. Even I am not sure about myself.
Hello.
Yes.
When we say, وَلَا سَوْفَ يُؤْتِيكَ رَبُّكَ
Yeah.
فَتَرْضَى.
Yeah.
Now, is this Quranic word? Isn't
Yes.
there any kind of contradiction?
Yeah, he has a footnote here. Yeah, inshallah, we mentioned that. Another story is about Sa'd ibn Ma'adh. In that story, it's the mother of Sa'd. This lady was not the mother of Uthman, was the lady that with her husband, they hosted Uthman ibn Mad'un in their home, okay? But in the story of Sa'd ibn Ma'adh, it was the mother of Sa'd that in the funeral again saw that Rasulullah was very sad, and the story of angels being there, all these things. So she said something similar about congratulating her son for going to heaven, Rasulullah said, "La tahtami ala Allah." La tahtami ala Allah means don't make a decisive judgment on behalf of God. It's my translation. La tahtami ala Allah. Don't make a decisive judgment on behalf of Allah. In other words, don't force Allah by your judgment. Now, in the footnote, Ayatollah Mutahari says, maybe you ask, and you actually asked, that is there any contradiction between this hadith and the ayah from Surah Ahqaf, ayah number 9, Ma adri ma yuf'alu bi, and some other verses of the Quran that we know that the Prophet had maqam and mahmud, for example, and he could do shafa'ah. The answer is Rasulullah as a person was not able to say what would be his destiny. Even Rasulullah was not sure about himself. If it was left to him, if it was no direct communication from Allah, if Allah had not clarified this for him, even Rasulullah was not sure what is going to happen to him. But through wahy, Rasulullah was aware that he's going to do shafa'ah. So you have to distinguish between two sides. Rasulullah as a person doesn't know what's going to happen to him. Doesn't think that he must go to heaven. But Rasulullah as a messenger that Allah has revealed to him that this is going to happen to you, he knows this. So there's no contradiction. It's like ayat about ghaib. He doesn't know the ghaib as a person, but on the other hand, Allah discloses the ghaib to him. Or he doesn't have shafa'ah of his own, but Allah gives him the right for shafa'ah. There is no contradiction.
So we can say exactly the same thing for his other ahadith, for example, Al-Hasan wal-Husayn Sayyid Shabab al-Jannah wa Fatima Sayyid al-Nisa al-Alameen. When he's saying that this is from ghaib as well.
Yes. Okay, so these are two points that we wanted to make clear. This was actually one point. The second point. So one point was, it's not a matter of individual cases. We don't make any judgment about individual people unless we have something from Quran or authentic hadith about a person. Otherwise, even someone like Usman ibn Mad'un or like Sa'ad ibn Ma'ad or Sheikh Ansari, we don't make any judgment. Something that many times comes to my mind. You always envy some people. Yeah, there are some ulama, some great figures that you envy them. But can you say, "Oh Allah, please give their position to me"? No. Not because you are proud of yourself, but because you don't know what's their position. It's a gambling to say, give their position to me. I know my problems, but I cannot, it's not a matter of pride, it's a matter of, we have to leave everything to the hand of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Do you understand?
That's the safest hand.
Yes.
So how about, for example, the killers of Ahlul Bayt, or like a dictator like Saddam?
You never want to be replaced with them.
No. Yeah, but I'm saying on the other side that we said we can't pass judgment about anyone. If someone asks you, okay,
I said, if in the authentic hadith, someone or some people are said that they are in heaven, that's another issue. For example, for Ashab of Abu Abdullah, we know that they have been mentioned in our hadith that they have a special position. But in general term, we cannot say Ashab of every Imam, we want to, for example, I want to be instead of this. I can say, I wish I had their good qualities, their good a'mal. But I cannot say, oh Allah, I close my eyes and, just replace me with him.
No, I'm not referring to the good. I'm saying about the bad. For example, someone like Saddam, for example. Can you not pass judgment and say this person will be in hellfire? According to this, we can't because we don't have a hadith.
Those that, as I said, in the Quran or Hadith are judged like Tabbat Yada Abi Lahab, like Fir'aun. But with other people, it's better that we are silent. Yeah, but there is Tawbah, there are other things. Maybe last day that person repented, for example. We don't know. And we don't need to judge about this. We condemn what he did. We don't need to make sure and escort him to the hell. Just condemn what he has done. Yes. Okay. But again, to apply it to this case, it's not our job. We can say this action, murder, is condemned. But this murderer is going to hell, it's not my job. Yes.
I heard from one of the Khatib and Alim recently. He said that one of the person was standing next to the grave of Imam Hussain al-Islam. And he was praying that, Ya Hussain, do not intercede Shimr.
Mm-hmm.
And the person is standing in the back and said, is it possible for him to intercede him? And he replied that they are the mazhar of Sifat Ilahi, they can do this.
Mm-hmm.
So if we bring this into your context, we should not judge anyone.
Unless it's in the Quran or in the Hadith, and we have to be very careful, because if you don't stop this, then people say, I am certain this person goes to hell, I am certain that this person should be cursed, and even they bring it then to the people around.
It is happening already.
They curse even their own brothers, sisters, everyone. We should be not interfering in the way Allah judges. Yes, when it comes to the actions, we can be clear that murder is wrong. Full stop. But this murderer, what is going to happen to him? I don't know. Maybe he will be forgiven. Maybe he is repenting. Okay. The second point. This is very delicate issue. Ayatollah Mutahari says, the question whether good actions of non-Muslims or non-Shia are accepted or not is one question. Whether Islam is the religion which is pleasing to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in this time and age is another question. These are not necessarily the same. Basically, he says, and this is where you have to read carefully word by word. Inshallah, later go and read word by word. I have tried to say everything, but also you read it carefully. And I may also have sometimes a little difference of opinion with the way he explains. Okay, maybe you can articulate it a little bit differently. So those of you who are familiar with my ideas about religions, so you may know the way I normally articulate, but it's very close. He says, some people think that there can be more than one true religion at each time. For example, today, you can follow different religions or different divine religions. He says, we don't say this. We say it's not a matter of having option. For example, he refers to George Jordak. who has a book on Imam Ali, or Jubran Khalil Jubran. These two were Christians, and they had books on Imam Ali. They were very impressed by Imam Ali, but they had the idea that they can have another religion and still be successful, and still they thought that this is also the position of Imam Ali. So, for example, he says that George Jordan says, this is what George Jordan says. He said, Imam Ali is not a person who would impose one religion, particular religion, on people. Okay? So, they say you can have choice. So, he says, some people think maybe these people were not honest. He said, no, they were maybe honest. They really loved Imam Ali, but they had the idea that you can be a Muslim, you can be Christian, you can be a Jew, but still you can appreciate in what another holy person from another religion has done. Yes.
Okay. When we say Inna Dina Indallahi Islam.
Yeah, we come to that.
Okay. But my question is, there is a hadith, I think up to now it's authentic hadith from Imam Ali Islam, that if I have a chair of Kazawa, I can do the ruling for Muslim through the Quran, for Christian through Bible, and for Jews from Torah. So here, can we get a gist that Imam Ali Islam is saying that, but why is making rule from those books when the authentic book is only Quran now, in the time of the Amir al-Mu'min alayhi salam? So why Imam is taking these names? Is this something else Imam wants to say?
No. So maybe this is telling that the core of these religions are the same.
Okay.
So it's just a matter of historical interpretations which have made them different.
Sorry, just make it clear. So, for example, if we say that Christianity and Judaism in their original form, which was revealed through Prophet Jesus and Musa, if that is still in that form, that is again, it's shape of Islam, it's Islam as well, it's nothing but Islam. Can we say this?
The core is the same. The core is, yes. Inshallah, little by little. But please write down any question that comes to your mind is important. We want to discuss any question. So don't worry, say, maybe my question is not good, or no, any question is important. Please write any question. By the time we finish the book, then we should answer all these questions, inshallah. Okay, so this is one view which says people have choice. Please listen very carefully. What does it mean they have choice? It means that, for example, a Muslim can say, from today, I want to be a Christian. A Christian says, I want to be a Muslim. Just as a choice. They are equal, and you can shift from one to the other. This is what some people have thought. Okay? On the other hand, there are some people who say, no. There is only one way of being religious, and that is my, for example, religion, or even not my religion, my mazhab. If you are not for example, person from my mazhab, no benefit. Even your salat and not salat is the same. Or so your salat and your na'uzubillah, sinful actions are the same, for example. Some people are this much, rigid.
These are the problems these days.
Yes. So, he says, our idea is this. La ikraha fid-din. There is no compulsion in religion. People are not forced. One. But this doesn't mean that also logically all the sides are equal. in my explanation, Islamically, it's better not to interfere in people's choice about religion, even if they are going to make a wrong decision or not the best decision. But this doesn't mean that these choices are equal and they have option. Do you understand? So we don't want to force, we don't want to impose. And indeed, as Allama Tabatabai says, religion is something that cannot be imposed, because religion is to love. Yeah? How can you impose someone to love? To believe by heart. You cannot force people to believe in something by heart. So, there is no force, no compulsion, but it doesn't mean that all those different options or few of them are equal. And logically, you can follow any of them. Yes.
I was just going to say that can be actually reinforced by the fact that during the time of the Holy Prophet, he sent letters out to invitations, and there were people who were following, particularly Christians and others, to invite them towards Islam.
Yeah.
So actually, that would reinforce this argument to say that there is only one faith. Just because you don't have compulsion, it doesn't mean they're all equal.
Yeah. So, yes, there is no compulsion, but at the same time, you can believe that there is one religion or one, for example, tradition, which is logically the one that is stronger and which is more pleasing to Allah, and you have to find out. So you should submit yourself to that, not that someone else forces you. Okay? But also, we don't want to say that this is, for example, necessarily my choice or your choice. That's another issue. Which is the religion that is the most pleasing to Allah is another issue. But up to here, I think most of Muslims, most of Christians, most of Jews have this idea that there is one way of life, one tradition, which is most pleasing to God. Some may say it's the only one, or at least they say that it's the most pleasing. But these people who believe in the idea of pluralism or, a version of unity of religion, one version of it, they say, no, these are different options, and they are more or less the same. Either exactly the same or the difference is not that much. So you can choose. For example, they may even say, of course, they may not have actually said this, but maybe they have said this, I don't know. But I think it's a logical implication that, for example, you are going to be few years in Middle East, become Muslim. Then you go a few years to a Christian country, become Christian. Then you go a few years to a Jewish country, because they're all good. You have choice. We don't want to say like this. At the same time that we don't want to impose, and at the same time that we don't want to say all other religions are, except mine, all are, false, 100% false, they are bad, they are, they have nothing to do with God. No. So it's very fine line here. To find the right position is very difficult. Yes.
This verse, La ikraha fi din, is a very famous part of the verse. Most of our own people and many Muslims as well, they say that La ikraha fi din, when someone is doing, for example, Amr bil Maruf or Nahi al Munkar from the pulpit or from the general public, then they say that there is no, why you are telling me to say my prayer or things like that, because La ikraha fi din. So how could we explain them that this point is different than what you say?
Yeah. A typical answer is no force to bring people to religion. Mm-hmm. But when they come to religion, they have to accept the rules of the religion. For example, we have different football clubs. You should not force people to come to your club. But if they come, there are rules that you have to follow. Yeah, he cannot say, la ikra, for example, in choosing the club. Say, okay, but after you choose, you have to commit yourself. Okay? So religion is more important than a club. But even in a club, you accept certain rules. Yeah? So, Ayatollah Mutahari says, there is no compulsion in religion, but at the same time, we believe that in every age, there is one religion, but mainly he talks about Sharia. One of the things that you have to be very careful, I think many times between Deen and Sharia, no clear distinction is made, and this causes problem. Deen and Sharia are not the same thing. Sharia is part of the Deen. Sharia is the legal rulings and the code of law of the religion. Anyway, there is one religion with one particular, for example, Sharia, that is the one that in this age would be most pleasing to God. Then he says, some people say, Allah has said in the Quran, Surah Al Imran, verse 85, وَمَنْ يَبْتَغِ غَيْرَ الْإِسْلَامِ دِينًا فَلَنْ يُقْبَلَ مِنْهُ وَهُوَ فِي الْآخِرَةِ مِنَ الْخَاسِرِينَ. Whoever accepts any religion other than Islam, it would not be accepted from him, and in the hereafter will be one of the losers. So he says, Ayatollah Mutahari says, some people have said this ayah shows that we should be submitting ourselves to God. Islam in a general sense, in a wider sense, and it can be for Muslims or Christians who are submissive to God. Ayatollah Mutahari says, yes, Islam here is general. وَمَنْ يَبْتَغِ غَيْرَ الْإِسْلَامِ, he says, yes, this Islam is general, means submission to God. It's Islam of Abraham. But how today I am submit to God? There is no kind of, options. Logically. I'm not talking practical options. I'm talking logical options. You have to do your best to find out what's the way which is most pleasing to God today. What is the way that God wants from you today? Okay? So, submission to God is the main thing. And submission to God in every age may require different things. But I say in brackets, here there is a very important point that submission is the main thing. And then how you act after submission is the second main thing. But the main thing is submission to God. And therefore we later explain that if someone out of sincere submission thinks the second best or the third best religion is the one that God wants from him, again he can be a person who has Islam. Okay? Inshallah we'll talk about this later. So, after making these 2 points, now the question is, so first point, what? We don't judge about individuals unless Quran or authentic hadith talks about them. The second question was about, is there one religion or many religions, pluralism and this type of things. After these two, we go to the main discussion. Can we have righteous deeds, amal saleh, good actions, which will be accepted and rewarded by God without faith or not? Yes.
Question is about this Quranic verse of Surah Al Imran, verse 64. قُلْ يَا أَهْلَ الْكِتَابِ تَعَالَوْا إِلَىٰ كَلِمَةٍ سَوَاءٍ بَيْنَنَا وَبَيْنَكُمْ Now here, for example, if the Jews and the Christian, they come to the Holy Prophet and say, okay, we do not accept you, the Prophet, but we all are agreed that we will not worship. And the people died during this time. So they are, according to this Quranic verse, they are on the right path.
If that's the way between them and God, they were convinced that this is the best way to please God.
Mm-hmm.
They were not lazy. They were not, for example, biased. They were not, stubborn. They did their best, but this was the way they found to be most pleasing to God.
In that
Yes.
case, you can say if they were Jahil Qasir about Islam, not Jahil Muqassir. In that case,
Yes.
I'm not sure if I agree with that because
And also a question to think about it. A question to think about it. You don't give me answer now. Just think about it. A Muslim who is not submissive to God, but just brought up, a Muslim environment. So he's a Muslim, but not submissive to God. God says don't do haram, he does. God says do wajibat, he doesn't do wajibat. A Muslim is not submissive to God, and there is a Christian who is submissive to God. Which one is nearer to God? Just think about it. Okay. Yes.
I was just going to say about the submission bit, that if they didn't accept the Prophet and they submitted to God, submission is a level of intellect, okay, and it is submission to truth.
Yes.
The Prophet brings truth, which according to the intellect, if you open to the truth, it's not about him, as in the Prophet is, it is the following of the truth.
Yes.
And if the Prophet brings this, and if you are in true submission, which is the true element of submission, then clearly what you should be doing is saying, okay, we accept the Prophet because he is the bringer of truth. And what he's saying, or the miracles, or everything there are so many examples, but they choose not to say that. But how can we then say there is submission?
What is important is that whatever they have come to know, it is true, they accept it. Whatever they had access to discover, they have accepted. But maybe for them, it was not possible to discover the prophethood or the imam, because this is a question of Muslim, non-Muslim, it's a question of Shia and non-Shia also. Maybe there's a person who is very submissive to God, very truth-seeking person, but for some reason, he is not able to discover the truth. Because there are lots of discussions here. For example, he even thought as a probability that maybe there is another way. Because, for example, he has been brought up in a certain way, and he has seen all the good things about this, all the positive things. He has felt, presence of God, all these things. He has lots of good experiences. And on the other hand, he has no experience the other way. And maybe also sometimes he has seen some problems. So he's sure that this is what God wants from me. But if he really knows that God wants something else, he wouldn't mind. Okay? So there can be people in Islam or outside Islam who are submissive, but they have not been able to understand exactly all the truth. But they are truthful people. And there can be people who, by just accident, it's not that every Muslim is a truth-seeking person or is a Salman. There are some Muslims that by accident or just they were fortunate, they were lucky that they were born into this. But it's not that they are truth-seeking. If they were born into, for example, another religious community or atheist community, they would have become the same. So we cannot say every person from a certain tradition is necessarily living by all the standards of that tradition. And Allama Tabatabai in Al-Mizan Volume 1 also, he says that there can be some non-Muslims who are better than some Muslims, regardless of Islamic Sharia being better. Even today, I think it's very clear, we have today some so-called Muslims that even we don't want to be with them for a minute in one room, like these Daesh people. Can we say these are better than some non-Muslims who are good, pious, kind? We cannot say Daesh is better than them. It's very clear.
Many people say Daesh better because now we discuss with many people. They say because of their Muslim, they better.
Yeah, that's wrong then. Yes.
Of course.
And tell them wait for Daesh to come and get you. Then you will change your mind.
I think they are ready to be Daesh.
Maulana,
At least
maybe they do tawbah after that. Daesh and other. Maybe do tawbah.
Yeah, we don't. We say this action is wrong. I'm not talking about individuals. We say this action, this idea is wrong. Individuals, we have no responsibility. So, the major question for us is this. Is good action, or if we are able to use amal saleh, because this is a question. Can we say this is amal saleh, or amal saleh is only for believers? Is good action or amal saleh of people who don't believe in Islam or don't believe in Shia Islam is accepted by God or not? And he mentions here again two opinions. He says some people say, for God, people are the same. God does not discriminate. He has equal relation to everyone. And good action is good action essentially, intrinsically. It's not by contract or choice. Yeah? For example, helping a needy person is good, no matter who is doing this. Feeding a hungry person is good. So, they say, because God has equal relation to all human beings, God does not discriminate. And second, good action is good action in its essence. Of course, in akhlaq we said it has to be with good intention, but suppose these people also have good intention, genuinely want to help. So they say it must be accepted by God. We cannot say it's useless. This is one idea, that any person who does good action would be accepted. There are also people who say, Ayatollah Mutahari says, opposite to this, on the other extreme, that only a small fraction of people who have proper religion, proper madhab, even, for example, proper way of doing fiqhiyat, they can go to heaven and their actions are accepted. And he says for them, most of people are not going to be accepted, their actions are not accepted, they are not going to be having access to heaven, and this is the opposite. But he says there is a third approach, which is the Quranic approach, which is the balanced approach. Okay? And the balanced approach is that a good action, which is, if you remember in akhlaq, we had this discussion, which has husn fi'li and husn fa'ili. Yeah? So the action itself is good, and at least the intention is you do this because it is good. this action would be valuable. Yeah, you cannot say it's useless. Even if the intention is not qasd qurba, if it is not, for example, gaining reward. Just you do something good because you feel this is good. This is valid. But there can be different levels depending on what is your intention. Whether you have faith or not, whether you have ma'rifah or not. There can be lots of different ranks for good action. In akhlaq we discuss this, and inshallah here also we will discuss this. So I stop here, and inshallah if you can manage to do freehand study pishmo mutala, so that we can go faster. So the question that we want to inshallah continue is good action possible for those who don't have the proper faith? Is it possible that they have good action, righteous action, amal salih, or not? Inshallah we continue. Wa akhiru da'wana alhamdulillah rabbil alamin.